Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another Audio Advice live streaming giveaway, where today we're joined by some of our good friends over at Anthem Paradigm and Tech Enthusiasm to talk about the all-new, I guess kind of new, Anthem MRX Slim. But before we kick it off, we want to go ahead and give you guys kind of a run of the show. So this is going to be an hour-long stream. It's going to be primarily Q&A driven. So that's going to be audience questions. So if you have any questions on the MRX Slim or ARC or anything Anthem, feel free to go ahead and plug those in. And we actually have a special prize for the best question on top of our big giveaway prize. So it's gonna be a lot of fun. So we'll go ahead and run through introductions here. So let's see, Jeremy, you want to go ahead and kick us off? Tell us who you are, what you do, and then we got a fun question after that.
Yeah, sure. Jeremy Pyle, I'm owner, content creator at the Tech Enthusiasm YouTube channel. Had the channel going for about 3.5 years, but I've been active in the home theater hobby for 20 plus years now. So I just love it. Love helping folks out through the content and engaging with people directly, consulting, and yeah, all those things. It's fun.
Awesome. Well, yeah, and Jeremy, I've been a huge advocate of your channel this entire time
Much appreciated.
since I met over at Audio Advice Live. Of videos that we send each other, inside our own company. I'm sending your videos to our other theater designers all the time, so it's great. But we like to kick these off with a fun question. So my question today is, what is your favorite non-traditional piece of demo material? So this isn't one of your standards like Ready Player One, Jurassic Park, anything like that.
Yeah. One of the things that I pull up quite a bit if folks are over and checking stuff out is the Sgt. Pepper's album, Apple Music, spatial audio. I think it
Cool.
presents pretty good. It's got a lot of acoustical, interesting elements and stuff to it. I'll do one more thing too, actually. If you have a PC and you pull up some more recent games, especially like Sony games like Spider-Man, God of War, in a scope environment, you can play those games in a 21:9 aspect ratio. That wows people a lot.
I've heard that. Yeah, and I know the new Indiana Jones also did that same thing, which is really cool. But so awesome. Well, Kyle, you want to kick us off next?
Yeah, great to see everybody. Just like Jeremy, every year we do Audio Advice Live with Nick, and it's a ton of fun. Probably, what I do for Paradigm and Anthem the most is answer questions about all the cool products that we make and help our dealers like Audio Advice when they're out in the field getting them set up in customers' homes. So I love this industry. I love everything that we make. I'm sitting here in my media room talking about gaming. Jeremy, this is my sim racing room. So that's why I have the F1 car up there. And I know Nick just got into it recently. So that's definitely something cool to put somebody in the driver's seat and let them experience this system when they come over to my house. But I think my most non-traditional piece of surround sound demo material goes all the way back to when I was in retail. And I used to use something called Swedish Run from the DTS9 demo disc. It was audio only 5.1, where a guy went out of an airplane, went through an entire city scene, and you could hear all those environments around him with absolutely no video to follow, but you knew exactly where he went because of how immersive and detailed the audio was. So I used to love using that to show people how important audio is in their theater experience.
Very cool. That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, we got one more on here. So Dave, you want to go ahead and kick us off after you put my mustache to shame?
Yeah, I'm David Baker. I'm the director of sales for Paradigm Anthem. Joined in 2019, so roughly 6 years ago, right after John and Scott Bagby bought the company back. We're one of the rare independently owned and operated consumer electronics companies, something we're pretty proud of. Spent about 28 years, pretty much my whole adult life in the consumer electronics business on the vendor side. Worked at a retailer before that. Super big enthusiast for audio video. Don't do as much gaming as I used to. I've got 4 kids. Time is precious. I like to fly fish when I do get some spare time. Still coach high school baseball, and I play in a competitive league in Seattle. So that's kind of what I try to do to get out of the house when I'm not sitting here at my desk.
Very cool. Well, same question for you. So what's your favorite non-traditional demo material?
Yeah, I don't know about non-traditional. I'm older than you folks. I'm gonna date myself a little bit. There used to be on Laserdisc, believe it or not, there used to be something called the THX Wow disc that we'd use all the time. It had a bunch of clips from the various Lucasfilm movies. That was always kind of a unique thing to pull out for some folks. Probably what I do more now is I'll use a 2-channel cut. There's a track from Livingston Taylor that starts off with a very simple whistle that's basically dead center stage. And it's one of the things I use when I set up a speaker system. And then a little soft sort of foot tapping kicks in, which helps me put the speakers in phase, helps me align that with the subwoofer. So that's something that I'll pull out for folks on a rare occasion.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, yeah, and I'll go ahead and introduce you guys to myself. So my name's Nick. I am the lead theater designer here on Audio Advice's online side. So if you guys have done a home theater DIY, you've probably worked with me or somebody who I work with. So work all through those pieces. But yeah, so my probably main two. So I've got two. One is probably going to be Kid Amnesia, which is like this interactive art experience from Radiohead on video game consoles. I think it's on PlayStation and Xbox. So that one's fantastic. It's a little bit more new age. And then I guess one that's going to be a little bit more old school would be Tennessee Stud, which is a 2-channel awesome demo from Nitty Gritty Dirtgrass Band. Awesome demo, and they all record around one mic, and nobody really uses it, but I love it. But awesome. We'll go ahead and kick things off here. So Kyle, I know we've got a few prizes today. Do you want to go ahead and tell everybody about those?
Yeah, so the main prize, of course, is the MRX Slim. That's what we're talking about today. And I actually have one installed in this room with me. This system is a 5.1 system with our Millennia LPXLs behind me. Dave has one behind his shoulder as well. And this is an incredible piece of technology. We've taken 5 channels of good, clean, high-quality Anthem power, put it into a small chassis, and we're utilizing, of course, a single subwoofer output on it to give us an incredible 5.1 experience like I have here in the room. That's going to be the main giveaway prize as we talk about its capabilities today. And for the best question, we're going to be giving away an Essentials 10 subwoofer. The Essentials 10 subwoofer is a very powerful small form factor sealed subwoofer with a high performance 10-inch woofer, 200 watts of RMS power, 400 watts of peak power output. Both Dave and I have one at our house currently that we've been using since we started beta testing the sub. And I can tell you it packs a punch well above its weight and its price. It's pretty incredible.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I know we're really excited. And the best question. So that's going to be, both of these are going to be selected at the end. So if you guys want to go ahead and get in some questions, you got the whole hour to ask those about really anything around Anthem Paradigm and, well, mostly Anthem. And we'll select those at the end. So awesome. It looks like we already got some rolling in. So go with the first one here from John Hansen. So other than the obvious low profile, what considerations does Anthem looks at when developing compact versus full-size AVRs?
Yeah, I'll take that one. So we look at everything from a performance standpoint. We love the enthusiast crowd that loves great performance audio, creating surround sound, stereo, whatever you're into. And we know there are tons of different rooms that these will be placed into, system designs, and nowadays especially where size is such a critical component of when somebody's installing something into their living room, or in my case, like in this guest bedroom mini theater that I have, I needed something that was low profile to be able to fit into a small piece of furniture. So that's just another use case where the MRX Slim makes sense compared to a full-size receiver where I don't have the depth, I don't have the height, and quite honestly, with all the other equipment I have in here with my PlayStation 5, my Apple TV, and I occasionally will bring in my computer like you guys were talking about to listen to some great audio. You have to have enough room to be able to get high performance in those small form factor pieces of furniture. And that's where the Slim can be extremely beneficial, even when you would traditionally maybe look towards a full-size receiver because it's not being mounted behind the television. It's not being mounted inside of an in-wall media cabinet like the Slim can be used for. So when we're looking at developing everything, though, the key thing is it has to perform like an Anthem product. Whether it's a full-size receiver, a full-size processor, separate amplifiers, we want to make sure that you have Anthem's legendary performance and sound quality. So it's got a powerful amplifier on board. It's 50 watts a channel. If you're familiar with our full-size receivers that have Anthem Room Correction Genesis, this has the exact same version of Anthem Room Correction Genesis. It has auto distance. It has auto phase for your subwoofers to make sure they're perfectly aligned with your front mains in the system and blend in seamlessly. So we take all of that and put it into a small form factor at a really great retail price. I mean, that's probably the one thing that I get asked about the most is why would I use it from a system design standpoint? And what does this compete with from a pricing standpoint if I can't stretch my budget into something like an MRX 548K full-size product?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I would second that with regard to performance. That is obviously the number one priority for us when designing a product. And like Kyle mentioned, we're as homeowners, we obviously have different rooms, we have different budgets, we have different spaces. We are trying to make a product that is going to be optimized for that application. In a perfect world, we'd all have AVM 90s with a stack of MCAs and tower speakers for left, center, right, and sides and rears, and large in-ceiling products for Atmos. But the reality is, a lot of our rooms can't accommodate that. And rather than either having no audio or perhaps even making a sacrifice, I don't want to discredit powered sound bars and products like that. But a Slim with one of our decor products, or a Slim with just a nice pair of bookshelves, or a Slim with a nice pair of tower speakers is just going to give you just a really high level of performance in a space that perhaps you really weren't going to be able to put anything in there because there was just nowhere to put a traditional AVR product, whether it was one of our products or a competitor's.
I think it's really great too that you keep the consistency of like the UI and the usability and stuff like that in the model too. It's a huge benefit.
Yeah, having Anthem app control, having the same version of Arc Genesis. If you have a full-size receiver processor from us, you can use your full-size Arc kit. That is a question that we commonly get asked when we're out in the field with the MRX Slim. And actually, I think, Nick, there is a video of what Dave was talking about. We had a customer that wanted to get higher performance audio in a difficult room where they had this beautiful built-in wall with bookshelves flanking the side of their television and the fireplace all the way up. And there was nowhere to put a traditional AV receiver, and the house was already built, so they couldn't remotely locate it in the house inside of a closet or inside of a rack. So being able to mount the MRX Slim behind the television and not just drive a passive sound bar, it's driving a pair of our Founder ADF towers. And I was in that room personally after we ran Arc Genesis. The customer was blown away by a 5.1 small form factor receiver, just driving 2 speakers and a subwoofer like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy how that amp technology is able to get down that small. Because I mean, what dimension-wise, what are we looking at? It's a 1U tall box, right?
11 by 11 by basically 1U, which is 1.5 inches. It's super compact, as that video illustrated there. You might not be able to see it behind me there, but it's I've got that just running a 2-channel system. I take content primarily from my phone and stream to it over AirPlay, and use that with just a pair of bookshelves. I think one of the other applications for the Slim for a lot of folks, they don't really want a complicated system. They don't want to buy and invest into a control system with multiple sources. Just about every TV now has every single app on it, so you can take the content, stream from your TV, run eARC into the Slim, have it buried, and there's literally nothing you need to do. You turn the system on, off with your TV remote control, adjust volume with your TV remote control. If you have an Apple TV or Roku and you want to use that, you can connect that to your TV set and then eARC back into the Slim. Again, for a lot of folks, that simplicity is a high priority for them. So we have to take that into consideration as well when designing a product.
Absolutely.
Well, we'll jump on some other ones here. So let's see. We've got one from Biosker. I'm not going to try. Is it strictly a 5.1, or can you do a 3.1 with heights?
That's a great question.
Dynamite. We got a leader in the clubhouse, I think.
Yeah, that is a great question. So this room originally, when I moved in, was a dedicated theater. Originally, I had a 7.2.2 system in this room. So I have a pair of height speakers already installed in here. Now, in my case, because I was changing the room around and I was designing it more around the stem bracing that I'm doing in here, I decided to go back to a full 5.1 system. However, at a later date, if I decide that I want to go to an Atmos system with 3 channels in the front and those 2 height speakers, you can use the amplifier matrixing built into the MRX Slim to do everything from a full 5.1 system to a stereo bi-amp system. So there have a lot of configuration options built in, including adding those 2 height channels to do something like a 3.1.2 as an example.
Very cool. And just conceptually speaking, what do you guys, well, actually, Jeremy, you could probably answer this one because you've got a living room set up. If you had the choice between like a 5.1 and a 3.1, or well, 3.1 with heights, which one do you think that you would probably end up going with?
I would probably go 3.1 heights, just because like a lot of in my living room is very much the case, and I think it's the case for a lot of others as well. You're really often compromised where you can put the speakers. And so like, I flat out don't have good surround speaker locations. They'd have to go like up in the ceiling and off in places where it just doesn't make sense. So I've taken my living room all the way down to 2.2, and I'd rather not have the speakers than have the speakers in screwed up, compromised places. So sometimes I think less is more. In those environments too.
Yeah. I thought that was a good question. I think I saw that as well. I always preach quality over quantity.
Exactly.
I think often so many folks get enamored with, having as many channels and many speakers as they possibly can. I mean, I'll confess my system is a 2.1 setup. I've got a pair of Founder 100Fs left and right on my center channel, or on my TV set. I don't have a center channel, and then I've got a sub. And part of it is it's a family room. The space that used to be my theater space is now my daughter's room, so I lost that luxury. So it's a living room environment, and I probably pressing my luck having 2 tower speakers and a subwoofer in that space as it is. I've driven that with the Slim before as well. I've got a traditional Anthem receiver in there now, but I've used the Slim with my 100Fs, and I even used it just single channel. I think Kyle mentioned you can bi-amplify with the Slim. So if you aren't using your 4th and 5th channels for surrounds, you can redirect those to your main speakers and bi-amplify. We've done that for some dealers when we've done demos, and I tell you, I get great results. So I always preach quality over quantity.
Phantom Center works really well too. I'm like,
that's exactly what I was going to say.
Well, the other beauty of that is you can always start with the 2.1 or a 3.1 right, and then build from there. I live in Florida, so I have a concrete exterior wall in my main living room area. So it was more difficult to add the surround channels when I went that direction. But I started with, just like Dave, I was a stereo guy with a TV in the middle. And then I built upon that over the years to where now I have the full 5.1.2 system in the living room with the big AVM90 stack, driving right now the Persona series speakers. So that's the cool part about growing with great quality products, is we have things like more channels that you can use if you start with just stereo or start with a 3.1 and build up from there.
So let's see, Kyle, no kids, AVM90, MCA stack with Personas. Me with kids, no AVM90, no Personas. I just want to put that on record.
I have a Labradoodle. He's quite expensive.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yep.
Yeah, that's what I have a good toy budget. That's what I like to say. If I got a good toy budget, that's
mine are prototypes. They're here for evaluation. That's
yes.
It's highly critical.
We are lucky because a lot of the questions that are coming up, Dave and I both received these products well ahead of time to them getting out into the field with consumers. So we get to test these in all kinds of different ways. And, both of us love this industry, love what we do. So when we talk about all the movies, all the TV shows we watch, it's part of that, getting a new subwoofer. Like Little Essentials 10, I watched Primeval America recently on Netflix, and I gave that recommendation to Dave. There are some scenes during that show where that 10-inch woofer is going off, and you would swear that I have a big 12-inch subwoofer in this room with me.
Yeah, you do a little double take sometimes. Like, which sub do I have hooked up? That's the 10. Like, holy cow! Because I have an XR subwoofer, which is clearly at the next level. But Kyle's right. That Essentials 10 really does pack a punch for size and form factor.
Yeah, especially in like smaller rooms and stuff, it's really going to move it. Your room size has so much to do with your subwoofer performance. And some people are like, oh, I need 15-inch sub. I'm like, dude, your room's like an 11 by a 10 by 10. I was like, you can fill that up with like two 10-inch subs. It's gonna be just fine.
Yeah, and there's something to be said about smaller subs. I mean, one of the challenges, whether it's a subwoofer or even a traditional box speaker in wall, you get a large surface driver and it has mass.
Yeah.
And keeping that mass controlled is one of the challenges of, sound reproduction versus like what you'd perhaps hear in live music. That speed and that detail and those micro dynamics, that's what's ultra critical. So yeah, sometimes bigger isn't better, especially when it comes to the subwoofer.
And I think, Nick, you touched on it just a second ago. When you can put two subs in a room or more subs in a room, a lot of times, making that choice to do two smaller subwoofers that are great from a performance standpoint is going to outweigh just a single, 12-inch subwoofer that's not the same quality of sound.
Yeah,
for sure. Totally agree.
So we got some other ones here. And before B. Oscar, I saw you put your name in there. Is the correct pronunciation? I appreciate that. So let's see. So we got one from Michael here. So how much heat does this amplifier generate? Can I put it in a cabinet or will it overheat?
Yeah, so this goes into our beta testing that we've extensively done on this product. Behind me, where I have the MRX Slim installed inside of that small form factor cabinet, it's a tight fit. It barely fits into that cabinet, even with the dimensions that we're talking about, with it being 1U high and less than 12 inches around. But the nice part about the MRX Slim is the entire enclosure is basically its heat sink. It's an extruded aluminum enclosure all the way around, so you can put it into those tight spaces. Throughout the beta testing process with my MRX Slim, I've had it installed in this cabinet. I had it installed behind a piece of furniture where the chest of drawers went all the way up against the back wall, where I had it mounted. And kind of going back to its functionality and flexibility, I know a lot of people that want to have a great hi-fi system at their work desk area. And I actually mounted the MRX Slim underneath my work desk in my office and had a pair of our Founder 40B bookshelf speakers. And I would just stream to it every day as I would listen to music as I'm working. So it's been placed all over the place just in my house. And we've even gone a step further. One of the use cases, one of the benefits of the MRX Slim is it comes with a bracket, and Dave has that bracket, I think.
Yep.
So you could mount it directly behind the television. Like I have the space behind my TV on a tilting bracket to mount it directly to the wall and then have the TV in front of it. But also, if you are working with a great dealer like Audio Advice and they're doing a custom installation for you to make it as clean as possible, this can go inside of what's called an in-wall media box. So it can be recessed in the wall by a professional installer, or if you're very comfortable with that yourself, and you can actually have it where you just see the television. Even if you have your TV up on the wall, you could have your source device, you could have your MRX Slim inside of that in-wall media cabinet behind the TV.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just a note to everybody, small and not generating a lot of heat, you still don't want to put it inside of a sealed cabinet. Very often I see people trying to do that, and it's got to have some sort of ventilation. Pretty much anything's going to need that. A router inside of a sealed cabinet or something like that's going to get pretty hot. But it's as long as it has some access to fresh air, you should be good.
Yeah, it runs amazingly cool. That picture, that video you showed was with this, what we call this E-clamp, and I don't know how well you can see it, but there's a little ridge here. And there's also ridges on the side of the Slim, and so it literally just pops right in. At CEDIA, we used this at the CEDIA show, not last year but the year before, and ran demos literally all day long for 3 days. And we had it actually in a rack with a 1U rack kit that we do make, stacked right on top of each other, and never had a problem. That's part of what it was designed for, was to be in a really tight enclosed space like that. And that's I would say so far that's probably the majority of how they've been installed in the field is that way.
One of the thoughts that I have for this thing is at some point I'd like to do like a fabbed up arcade machine. Either with like a PS5 in it, right, or a PC. And I think this would be the perfect box to basically drive the audio for that.
Yeah,
that is really cool.
Actually, one of my dealers that I work with down here in Florida, he's taken sim racing to the next level. He actually acquired a massive sim rig that has actuators and hydraulic arms, so you feel everything up, down, sideways, back and forth. I almost got sick while I was playing it, but it was a ton of fun. And that came with the stock audio system that company had installed originally, but their plan is actually to use an MRX Slim to drive our Garden Oasis outdoor speaker system because of the pod style of the Garden Oasis product, to do a full 5.1 off of the MRX Slim and put a subwoofer discreetly next to that rig. And it's going to be extremely immersive at that point.
That's very cool. Yeah, Kyle and I could go into the racing sim side of things. I'm telling you guys, it's really cool with a good system. Headphones is one thing, but with a full system, it's mind blowing. So let's see what else we got here. So does the MRX Slim include a microphone for the Anthem room correction function? You got it.
And if you have the full size kit, if you already have one of our MRX X40 or the AVM 70, AVM 90 products, the STRs, or some of the Paradigm products that come with the full size kit with the silver microphone, you can use that with all products that use Arc Genesis.
Mm-hmm. And is the silver microphone going to be better performance overall compared to the other one, or are they going to be relatively similar?
No, they're relatively similar. One of the questions we get is, why doesn't the MRX Slim come with the full size kit? It's physically bigger than the box for the MRX Slim.
Yeah.
So, if you have the boom stand and you have the microphone already from your X40, AVM 70, AVM 90, you can use it. But the small microphone Dave showed is perfect to use as well.
Yeah, so it comes with the mic, comes with the USB cable, comes with a little IR receiver. So let's say you do want to, comes with a basic remote control. So let's say you do want to use it just the good old fashioned way and use the remote control, and it's buried or at a line of sight. You can connect this receiver to the back of the Slim. Just have this little eye here visible, and then you can control it. Again, just another way to use it for folks that perhaps do not want to get into a universal remote or a sophisticated control system. We provide you with that option.
Yeah, we'll take a look here. So I got another question here from John. So do you recommend plugging HDMI to the TV and only ARC on the receiver, plug everything into the receiver? Which this kind of brings up a more interesting feature set of this. So you want to go into that, Kyle?
Sure, yeah. So it has one HDMI input. So if you are using a local device like a single Apple TV, PlayStation 5, you could go directly to the MRX Slim and then out of the Slim up to the television. That said, I personally would recommend going to the television with all of your HDMI sources and then using eARC on the television back down to the MRX Slim. It's important for a couple of reasons. One is, since you only have the one HDMI input, you may physically have more sources that can connect to it with a single HDMI. But also, like in my room, and again, going back to sim racing and gaming, we know that the more advanced feature sets of some of the new platforms like PS5, Xbox X will carry things like 4K 120 Hertz, VRR, ALLM. So you get all those advanced gaming features built into your television now and this new gaming platform. So you would need to do that because the MRX Slim has an HDMI 2.0B HDMI input. So to get that advanced HDMI 2.1 functionality, if your sources and your television or projector is capable of it, you would want to go to the display first and then come back down eARC.
Yeah, and I think it does. It goes back to the simplicity of how you want to use your system. That is going to provide you, because you can use your Apple TV remote control then and power. You got to turn on CEC, of course, and that was a big part of our beta testing with pretty much all the major TV manufacturers. We've tested the Slim with all those products. I know for a lot of folks, CEC is considered to be maybe not always so reliable. We've really beat it up with the Slim, and that was actually probably one of the things that caused it to be delayed the most. In full transparency, the design of the Slim started before Kyle and I even joined Anthem. That product's been on our roadmap for quite some time. In getting that CEC part of it working rock solid was really kind of one of the last holdups to launching this product.
I think go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
As I say, in a living room setup anyway, I think it's generally, if you have disparate sources, like in my living room, you got an Apple TV, I got a Kaleidoscape, a PC, and a Nintendo Switch. Like those are such different sources demanding different settings on the TV that having discrete settings on your TV inputs that are catered to your source is just a much better, more stable way to go, and then pump the audio back through the TV to the system anyway.
Yeah, totally agree. And to Dave's point, during the extensive beta testing that we have done, I always like to use my personal example. During a brief period of time when this was no longer my fun gaming room, it was a guest bedroom again. And my mother-in-law stayed with us for a handful of months. I hooked up the MRX Slim to the LG TV, used the Apple TV remote as the main source, and ER back down. She used the MRX Slim 5.1 system in this room the entire time she was here. And I never got a question of the TV didn't come on, the audio didn't come on. She literally used it every day she was here. And I'm pretty sure at first she thought she was only listening to the best sounding TV in the world. We really did put all of our effort into making sure this was as seamless as possible, because we all know that there are a lot of things that can be frustrating when it comes to having to teach somebody to use multiple remotes.
And also, I just wanted to show everybody, this isn't a very big picture, but I just want to show everybody the back of what this receiver looks like. So Kyle, do you just want to run through it really quick and just, kind of explain what they're looking at here?
Yeah. So the back of the receiver, from kind of left to right on the screen, that's our Phoenix style connector for all 5 channels. So that has your left, your right, your center, your surrounds, or your height channels, depending on how you're configuring it. And like Dave mentioned, you can actually use bi-amp. So if you're not using those additional 2 channels, you could bi-amp a bi-ampable capable speaker. You've got your subwoofer output right next to that block. And then you can kind of see it there. I know it's smaller on screen, but that's an analog input for a 3.5 millimeter analog to RCA input device. So in my case, I do have a control system here at home, and I use my control system's audio stream into the analog input to be able to listen to music. You've got your HDMI output. That's also the eARC input on the back of it, shown in the gray box. So that allows you to pass that audio back down using enhanced audio return channel or audio return channel. And it's also the output if you are using the HDMI input that's coming in right next to it. You've got a digital optical connection next. The USB that you see is for service. That's for us. And then you've got an Ethernet connection for your network connectivity for hardwired. Next to that, you're going to see that IR extender in that Dave showed you guys earlier. And then you're going to have, of course, your power cord insert there. And there's a small little reset button in case you have to reset it on your network for DHCP. So it's got a ton packed into that small chassis to be able to give you a great experience. And I know it is kind of hard to see there, but you've got your wireless antennas. So if you're not using the hard line Ethernet connection, you can connect the wireless antennas we include to put it on your Wi-Fi network.
Very cool. Yeah, the to be able to fit in the small form factor, people look at the speaker terminals and their speaker terminals, and they're asking, how does that work? What gauge speaker cable can you put in there?
It'll accept up to 12. You have to be tightened with it, but I do have 12 gauge wire connecting the Millennia LPXLs behind me down to the MRX Slim inside of my cabinet.
Yeah, and the beauty of it is that pops out. So you can, we've probably all done it, especially if for some of you guys that are DIYs, you're in there crooked or you're reaching through, you can make all the wire terminations to this and not even have that connected to the Slim. And then, you can kind of reach around and make that connection. It really does make life a lot easier, not only for our installers, but anybody that's doing it as a DIY. To make that speaker connection. It would be really hard if this thing's in a VersaBox and you're trying to screw some things down. So yeah, the compromise obviously is you can't use some really higher end esoteric cables, but at the same point in time, space is absolutely of importance. And providing a easy method for you to make those connections was also an important factor in terms of the design.
Yeah, so I'm glad you can use up to 12 gauge, because some people, some CI products are targeted around like 16 gauge, and I'm just, we try to get around 16 gauge if we can. Why not spend an extra couple dollars and get 14 gauge at least?
Yep.
But so here's one that we had a few questions on this ahead of time too. So can you use a Slim with Control 4?
Yeah, great question. Mine was previously on Control 4 during the testing process. All of our products, when it comes to the MRX X40, AVM 70, AVM 90s, they all have Control 4 compatibility, as well as numerous other third-party control systems, things like Elan, Crestron, URC, Savant. So you have all of those options available to you. Now, something that is really neat, if you know a lot about Control 4, is it has SDDP. So it shows up immediately inside of the Control 4 programming software, identifies itself, and you can create that easy connection to the MRX Slim to put into your control environment.
Very cool. And Jeremy, you've got some experience with Control 4. So, and you currently use an Anthem with Control 4. Is there anything
three of them.
special that you, yeah, 3 of them. Is there anything special that you do with your programming whenever you're setting that up?
No. I mean, the Anthem stuff's added in. The drivers are all native C4. I'm trying to think if there's no special programming, I would say, that I hit. It's kind of like, and it just works. Power on, input control, volume control is really what it's all about.
Yeah, and one of my favorite things to do with mine is I've got a on my Halo Touch, I've got a custom setting for like all the modes and things, so I can just go back through and go to the modes and scroll through them rather than having to go on the stock remote and swap through things. Yeah,
I haven't done that yet, but actually tonight I might be doing some Arc Genesis work in the room here. I just put some new speakers and stuff in the theater, and I may do an all seat profile and a main seat profile, and I'd love to tie that to a custom button agent on the Halo and be able to flip them.
Yeah, that was one of the things I was going to mention. I mean, that's, in terms of going beyond the pre-built drivers, we call them virtual inputs. That's probably the only time you might need to get to some customization. And of course, the beauty of a virtual input is you can take the exact same physical connection. Let's say you do have a Blu-ray player, but it also doubles as your CD player. And you can assign an input on an Anthem that is Blu-ray, and it will default to the multi-channel mode, and you can have your left, center, right, your surrounds, your subwoofers at a certain level. And then you can take that same physical connection and call it CD or call it music, and it can be just set up for the profile of left and right speakers, maybe with a sub, maybe without a sub. A lot of our consumers, I know, I do it in my system. I have basically kind of a night mode. So my subwoofer level is brought down a little bit. So if I am watching something at late at night, it used to be more when I was playing a lot of video games, you're probably being a little bit too loud. So you can bring that down. I know a lot of people like to bring the center channel level up a little bit when they're watching something at night. And that's one of the really cool features. And it's across all of our Anthem products, AVM and MRX.
Yep. Yeah. And it's really easy to do in Control 4 because it's just another input you're binding. So it makes it super simple to be able to set that up.
Yeah. I use it all the time. So, especially I use up mixers just way more than probably the average person. Even though I've got a great 2-channel system, I still just really enjoy up mixing.
Sure.
But let's see. So what efficiency threshold should speakers be to have the headroom given its power output?
It's a tough thing to really quantify a lot of times. You want good, clean, robust power anytime you can to any speaker, right? You want to pick something that's appropriate for the price of the speakers that you're working with, something that fits the need that you're working with. Like a good example is, Dave mentioned we used our Founder series. The Founder series, if you put a big, 225 watt per channel, 400 watt per channel amplifier on them, they're going to sing even more beautifully. However, in Dave's situation in his office, that MRX Slim has more than enough power to drive the Founder series to be able to give him a good listening experience because of the listening levels that he's usually playing it at. So it's the age-old question, how much power do I need? And really the right answer is you want good, clean power. That's the most important thing, which any Anthem product you use, whether it's the MRX Slim, a big, massive power amp like the STR power amp at 400 watts channel at 8 ohms, or even our distribution amplifiers, for the large majority of speakers out in people's homes are going to be more than sufficient to give them a great listening experience.
Yeah, I don't know if Scott, if you're looking for a specific, 87 dB, 89 dB, that sort of thing. it's not an exact science. It's a lot of it's going to depend on how big your room is as well. What volume levels you like to play it at. Obviously, the larger the room, the louder you want to play it at. Perhaps a lower sensitivity speaker could become a factor. I mean, that's one of the things that we obviously pride ourselves in, and think that that's where an Anthem separates itself from perhaps other AVRs in the marketplace, is our power supply. Not all watts are created equal. I'd take one of our 50 watt, quote unquote 50 watt amplifiers and take it head to head on with somebody else who's, saying that there is 100 watts. It's not all created equal. That's for sure. It has to do with current, has to do with control, has to do with damping factors. Those are all things that are probably more important to consider than exactly how many watts it is.
Yeah, and just as a reminder, for whatever reason, I guess in maybe the late 90s, early 2000s, people would see a 5-channel receiver, and it'd be 100 watts per channel. It's a 500 watt receiver. That's not the case. So if it's 50 watts, it's true 50 watts per channel for you guys.
And you can tell whenever you connect a proper amplifier, proper receiver to a pair of speakers, because everything we talk about, spatiality, imaging capabilities, control is huge, especially in bass performance with good, clean, quality power. And we're comfortable putting them on our Founder Series speakers in someone's home in a big open room like that. Trust me when I say this is a fantastic performing receiver.
Yeah, like I said, I've got them on 100Fs, and probably, putting a 50 watt, 50 watt amplifier on a large, tower speaker, one would think that's not the right match. But I certainly did not feel that I was running out of power at any time. I'm not a meathead by any means. I'm not, cranking it super, super loud, but I'm playing it loud enough that I don't really think I would have necessarily needed a lot more power. As you go up and down within the Anthem line, you will notice that, from a 540 to a 740, for example, it's more power. When you go to separates, it's more power. But to Kyle's point that he was mentioning before, some of the real benefits you get are, how it is as a preamp, the low level detail, the channel separation, the envelopment that it provides. I think that plays as big of a factor in your overall experience watching a movie or listening to music as the power, spec does. So I think that's something always worth considering.
Very cool. So I've got a few other questions here. Let's see. So one was, what latency, if any, is brought through the real-time audio processing for ARC? Latency would be a consideration for gaming or professional audio production. So I think it's good as ARC, which I presume we're talking about Anthem room correction, not HDMI ARC. But is there any latency that's brought about with that side of it, just the DSP?
That's a really tough question to answer. Dave and I are not engineers at Paradigm and Anthem. That said, of course, what you would primarily be concerned with when you're playing back in a system is going to be any latency between the audio and the video feed, which if you do have any latency issues, that's not created within something like the processing of the receiver, the processor. It's usually a difference between the display device and the original source device, which luckily on products like the MRX Slim, full-size MRX AVM products, we do have the ability to adjust lip sync. So that way you can try to resolve that if you do run into any lip sync issues. Personally, in my system here at home, I've never run into any lip sync issues. So I haven't had to use the lip sync adjustment. And typically that was, for the most part, back in the days of analog audio and separate video feeds. So HDMI has made that considerably less likely to happen. Of course, as we are processing any audio signal from analog to digital, back to analog, or from digital to analog, that's always going to happen. There is going to be timing that has to line up there. So that's why we have that additional feature built in case you do run into a lip sync concern.
Yeah, again, yeah, not being an engineer, I couldn't give you a specific answer to that question in terms of milliseconds or what have you. It hasn't come up, and as Kyle mentioned, we do have a lip syncing adjustment that you can make per input. I would say this came up more when receivers were also doing video processing, and we don't do any video processing. It's literally garbage in, garbage out. In our opinion, you've got 4K sources or higher resolution video content that you're using. Why should we try to process that? We want to take that basically uncleansed and go right through our piece. If you are going to the Anthem and then from the Anthem to your TV set, we want to do everything we possibly can to not impact that picture quality at all. We want to take the audio and work our magic, but we don't want to process the video. So we stay out of that path.
I've been gaming for a while now, high-end PC gaming, 4090, high frame rate gaming, with my ARC calibrated STR and the 90, and I wouldn't even have considered this to even be a remote concern in my mind that like ARC was affecting my gaming experience at all.
Yeah, I don't recall it coming up, and as Kyle mentioned at the very beginning, Kyle tends to get involved in the really detailed troubleshooting things that we have in the field, and again, best of my knowledge, it's never come up.
Yeah, same here. I've never dealt with it as an issue, and I do a lot of Anthem products. So, and if I ever have an issue, I always call up Kyle. So if he doesn't know, then the librarian or the librarian has it. So,
and I think something that didn't come up on the chat questions, which I was a little bit surprised about, is the auto distance, auto phase functionality that we added to the full size platform. When we talk about the things we do within Anthem Room Correction and trying to make sure your audio is as perfect as possible, it's incredible what we've been able to do with auto distance and auto phase to blend subwoofers seamlessly into the room. Dave and I always joke about this. Can I beat the machine? So I'll try to set it up and phase align the system manually, and then I'll run ARC. And I'll be the first to humbly admit ARC is better than me, especially when you talk about multiple subwoofers in the room, are difficult to place subwoofers in a room, wireless transmission kits that will add delay, DSPs that are built into subwoofer amplifiers on modern subs. All of that gets taken into account when we talk about auto phase, which is the next question, it looks like, that Nick rolled onto the screen. And that's perfect because, it's a combination of our distance adjustments when we're doing the auto distance measurements using ARC Genesis on the new MRX X40, AVM 70, AVM 90s, now on the MRX Slim. And actually, Jeremy mentioned he has an STR product at home. One of the really neat things about Anthem as a whole is we're always trying to think about the future and how we can improve people's systems after they buy one of our systems. We were actually to backport the new auto distance, auto phase functionality that we introduced in 2022 on our full-sized MRX X40 AVM 7090 products to the STR series. So customers that had the original STR preamplifier, integrated amplifier that had ARC Genesis got a free upgrade, and they got the benefit of the new auto distance and the new auto phase function. What we're doing with auto phase is solving for delays physically from your speakers to your primary listening position using auto distance measurements. We're also measuring any DSP delay built into your subwoofer's amplifier. And after all of that's calculated correctly to make sure everything's arriving at that primary listening position in sync, after your calibration is done and you launch that automatic phase adjustment, we're perfectly blending in the front speaker stage with your subwoofer. Now, if it's in MRX 540 or a 740, you have the two physical subwoofer outputs that are treated as one. So it's taking that measurement with the subwoofers that are connected as one measurement to blend them in. And then that's a huge benefit when you do get into things like the MRX 1140 with two independent subs, the AVM 70 with two independent subwoofer outputs, and then, of course, the AVM 90 has four independent subwoofer outputs for independent phase alignment, independent distance alignment for those four independent subs, and then having independent ARC equalizations as well to make sure that the process is as smooth as possible and gives you that perfect curve on your subwoofers in the space.
Awesome. Yeah, the auto phase adjustments, very, very worthwhile.
Yeah, and I'll share a story I had with a recent dealer. It was Tuesday. This is a dealer that sells uber high end stuff. I mean, I'm not kidding. $100,000 DACs, $300,000 speakers, and he was setting up a 740, a fairly modest system, and he had not done the auto phase, auto distance yet. So I walked him through that step. And, he called me back when he was leaving that house and basically said, holy cow, I can't believe how good of a job that did. And, one of the things that we see sometimes when I don't live on the forums, but we pop on there. I'll admit we pop on there every once in a while just to see what folks are saying. And one of the things we see all the time after someone's run ARC, hey, can you help me? I feel like I lost my bass. It's not as dynamic as before or whatever. And it's because we've calibrated your bass to be properly aligned with the rest of your system. I would say that's what most systems get wrong. And it doesn't necessarily mean you can't do it. I mean, you do whatever you want to do with your system. If you want to jack your subwoofer up and you want to cross over 120 hertz, go for it. Let it thump away. But in terms of properly setting up a system, the goal should be that it seamlessly integrates with your main speakers and the rest of everything. So as you're getting a bass pulse from your main speakers, you're getting a bass pulse in sync from your subwoofer. And when it's properly set up that way, everything just locks in. That's where you do get the spatiality. That's where you do get greater height and depth and width. I mean, all of those other little things just lock into place. Your dialogue clarity improves because it's not being masked by this sort of heavy weighted bass. And I mean, to what Kyle said earlier, that was something we added to ARC Genesis a little bit later on that I thought was a significant upgrade to our systems.
And it takes the hardest thing for us to professionally teach in this industry out of guesswork. It really is using science. It's using actual in-room measurements in your room, not in a laboratory, not in an anechoic chamber. This is done in your space with Anthem Room Correction to make sure that you're maximizing your system's potential. I would say one of the common tips that we recommend while we're talking about auto phase is before you run ARC Genesis, the first step on your subwoofer, if you have controls on the back of your sub, or if it's a custom installation subwoofer that has a separate amplifier, is you want to make sure that you have your crossover setting set to either LFE bypass, or if you don't have an LFE bypass setting or input, you would want to make sure that you have it opened wide open all the way to the top, because Anthem Room Correction is going to set its crossover. So you don't want to make any manual adjustments to that. The other thing that we recommend is if it has a phase control knob from 0 to 180, typically make sure it's at 0 when you start the process, because ARC is going to automatically set the phase built into the electronics. So you want to make sure that you start with that. Another great tool, and I know we could talk all day long about best practices with ARC, is you can use Quick Measure. When we talk about placing subwoofers in the room, Quick Measure is a real-time analyzer built into ARC Genesis software, and it can help you place your subwoofers. And even if you don't have the option to move it around in the room, you can use the gain control knob on the back of your sub before you run ARC Genesis to try to get that peak as close to 75 decibels as possible. So that way ARC starts out with a very smooth measurement in your room before you start actually applying the calibration.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, and Jeremy, you've run ARC quite a few times in your system. So do you adjust the bass after you run ARC, or do you keep it? Keep it where it's at?
No, I do.
The ARC police are listening.
Hey,
careful how you answer that question.
Yeah, I tend to boost a little bit of the deep bass boost and some room gain.
Yeah,
a little bit more in there.
Yeah,
pop the left side a little higher.
Guilty, right?
We all do it. Yeah.
Yeah, the proper way. So there's a difference in the proper way. Everything being 100% flat is the theoretical proper way, and there's what people tend to prefer. So having a little extra bass is nice.
I think how you're going to mention it, but yeah, if you do it within ARC, it still is done properly. It's more about how it's aligned with your main speakers and how the subwoofer is rolling off and your main speakers are rolling off, so you don't get that peak. you know, where they're both, you know, basically doing the same thing. I would say that's where most systems kind of get it wrong, for lack of a better word. Again, you can do whatever you want to do with your system. That's the beauty of it, right?
You're 100% right, Dave, and that is the secret sauce of Anthem room correction. Jeremy mentioned it. It's called room gain, and that's specific to your room and your environment. So that number is going to change based on the room that it's being measured in, the system that it's being measured with. And that's what we're doing to create that natural sound, because we do naturally want reinforcement in bass response. It happens in my voice here in my home whenever that wall is resonating a little bit. So you're used to hearing it whenever we're speaking, just person to person. ARC takes that into account and creates that room gain adjustment based on your specific system, your specific room. Now, what I always love about deep bass boost or room gain adjustments is my recommendation when I'm out there working with guys like Nick in the field, start with Anthem room correction, originally setting everything, especially if you've never had a properly calibrated system in the room with something as advanced as Anthem room correction. Listen to it for 2 weeks, and you'll be amazed at the pitch definition you hear in bass, how clean the bass response is, how dynamic the bass response is. And then if you still want to make some small adjustments to things like deep bass boost or to room gain, make those small adjustments to season it to taste for you specifically. But I do think a lot of times people are hearing the inflation of the room itself, and you're not actually hearing fundamental bass response. So I would typically start letting Anthem room correction handle it first, listen to it for a few weeks, and then make those adjustments based on what you really like to hear out of your system.
Yep, exactly. One of the demo tracks that I use for, kind of see how well my subs integrate in the system in Dune, I guess like in the orthocopter, like the Save the Minor scene, they have this, like, Hans Zimmer has this bass sweep at the end, and it goes from, probably, I don't know, 200, 300 hertz on down. And it's just, as long as that's consistent, you can really dial in a system with it.
It's one of my favorite demo scenes.
Good cut. Yeah, we used that. We used that a scene from Oblivion when he repels into the cave. That's also a very good cut for that. That's where you can probably find some rattles in your room.
Yeah. Yep. But if anybody hasn't used ARC, highly recommend trying it out. You hear some people that are saying, I can do it by hand. Good luck, John Henry. The steam drills may have you run for your money.
Yeah, and we could talk about it all day. I would encourage for some of you folks, go to our website, anthemarc.com. There is kind of some basic best practices on there. There's some history of ARC, how it all started, dating back to the NRC and Dr. Peter Shook and Mark Bonneville, who were really part of that Athena project originally, who are employed by us, by Park. We basically helped fund that project originally, and then brought those guys into our company. I shouldn't say our company because I wasn't there yet, but brought them into the Paradigm Anthem fold. It dates back quite a while. So if you really want to kind of geek out on this stuff, I would encourage you to go to that website.
And kind of a cool story. This is just more about the company that we work for, more than Dave, myself, ARC. Dave mentioned Dr. Peter Shook. His son is now our lead software developer.
Yeah.
So that's the really cool part about this company is, we have all of this history from the NRC studies, one of the largest privately owned anechoic chambers in North America, our manufacturing facility outside of Toronto. And when you talk to the people at Paradigm and Anthem, we all love one thing, and it's audio. Everybody loves performance. And, it doesn't matter if you're speaking to somebody that's building the speakers on the line or guys like me and Dave out in the field selling the speakers. We all love listening to all this gear.
Yeah. I think that's the nice thing about our industry. It's everybody has fun doing it.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, and I say the beauty now is, again, I'm going to date myself. We had to buy all of our media. And if you think about it now, the access to content, even free content, is just incredible.
Yeah.
If you think about your overall investment into an entertainment system, whether it's multi-channel or just a stereo playback, I don't even want to know how much I spent on CDs and vinyl. and DVDs, and then Blu-rays over the years, and now either through a subscription based streaming platform. We probably all have too many of them, but the access to content now is just absolutely incredible, and without necessarily a huge compromise in audio video performance. That was always sort of the downfall in the early days of taking things and going digital with it. It was compressed, and now it's you get just unbelievable picture quality and unbelievable audio quality online. It's just fantastic.
Yeah. And I still support people buying physical media, but and buy it if you can. But as we're about to roll into the end of the hour here, so let's go ahead and start announcing some of these winners. So just so you guys know, and I always give this to have myself a little bit of deniability, the people on the back end are selecting the best questions, so it's not just me. But we had one which we were starting to touch on, but I almost missed them, so I feel like we kind of owe it to him. So this one is for Dan Clayton. So this was, can you explain how the auto phase works? So yeah, just hit him just the right time. So I had it lined up. So Dan, if you reach out to us, we can get you set up with that essential sub, and we'll be good there. So then on to the winner of the SLM. Bear with me.
Please be me. Please be me. Please be me.
It is me for the fourth time in a row.
Here we go. You always win these things.
I know. So we got Jeffrey Beckman.
Hey, there you go.
Congratulations, Jeffrey.
Congratulations. Reach out to us. We'll get you set up, and you can enjoy that new piece. But before you guys run, and if you didn't win anything, we've got another opportunity for next month. Let me pull it up here. So next month, we're going to be giving away some Wharfdale Super Dentons. So a nice set of bookshelf speakers for you. So join us again. We've got that already up on our website. We'll post the link in the comments, so go ahead and join those in. But that should about wrap it up. Thank you guys for watching. And Jeremy, Dave, and Kyle, thank you guys so much for the fun conversation. It was great.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for
everybody.